take a good look at this giant clam. What does it remind you of? Drop your guess in the comments. Let's see who's thinking the same. It's strange, awkward, some even say hilarious. Most people can't help but laugh the first time they see it. But this creature can cost up to $50 per pound. That's more than Alaskan lobster. And on luxury dining tables, surrounded by rare wines and expensive delicacies, this clam takes center stage as a symbol of status. This is the geoduck, one of the most expensive seafoods in the world. But to bring one to the surface, divers have to risk their lives. They dive into icy cold waters, face crushing underwater pressure, and the constant threat of the bends, a deadly condition that can cause paralysis or even death. So why are geoducks so expensive? Is it their unique taste, the danger of harvesting them, or is it a global supply and demand story most people never hear about? Let's dive deep to find out, right here on Why So Expensive. If you've ever had clam chowder, that creamy, comforting soup from New England or Manhattan, you've probably tasted clams that cost around $10 per pound. Easy to find, easy to cook, nothing fancy. Now, let's talk about geoduck. It's also a clam, but this one, it sells for $50 per pound in the US, and when exported to China, it can reach $150 per pound. But here's the twist. Not long ago, no one cared about it. In Seattle, where geoducks naturally live, people saw it as just a weird, oversized clam. No one called it a delicacy. It was just a quirky local clam, something people tried once, out of curiosity. So what changed? How did a creature once seen as weird-looking, even awkward, become a prized delicacy at high-end restaurants in Hong Kong, Beijing, and Tokyo? And why is it that every geoduck dug up from American waters never ends up on American plates? Instead, it's shipped halfway across the world, straight to the dining tables of Asia's elite. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. We've got tons of surprising stories about everyday ingredients with not-so-everyday price tags. Now let's dive in.
The underwater clam hunt. The name geoduck sounds funny. Most people think of a duck, but it actually means to dig deep in the Nisqually language, spoken by native tribes in the Pacific Northwest. And that's exactly what it does, burying itself over a meter deep in cold, wet sand, with only its long neck sticking out to feed. But digging one out isn't easy. These clams live in icy, muddy waters like Puget Sound in Washington and British Columbia in Canada. To get them, divers wear thermal suits, carry oxygen tanks, and dive deep. They blast the sand with a high-pressure hose, then dig with bare hands, trying not to crack the fragile shell. One wrong move, you lose hundreds of dollars. But the real danger is what the divers face: strong currents, freezing temperatures, and the bends, a deadly condition if they surface too fast. It's high-risk, highly skilled work, and that's part of why geoduck costs more than lobster.
Asia's most wanted clam. Just hours after being pulled from the icy seafloor in Washington state, geoducks are packed and flown straight to China. There, they don't end up in grocery stores. They're served at million-dollar banquets, next to bottles of Bordeaux wine and plates of premium Japanese sea cucumber. In places like China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, and across Asia, this odd-looking clam isn't just food, it's a statement. At high-end weddings, luxury business dinners, or political banquets, just one plate of thinly sliced, crunchy geoduck sashimi can impress the entire room. The rarer it is, the more expensive. And the more expensive, the more people want it. That's why most geoducks harvested in North America never stay in America. They're almost all exported to Asia, where prices can triple. The demand is massive, but the supply, extremely limited. The result? Geoducks can sell for up to $150 per pound in China, more than Alaskan lobster, king crab, or even Japanese black cod. It's a luxury seafood race that only the wealthiest can afford to enter.
Nature's limited edition. Unlike lobster or scallops, which can be farmed in many places, geoducks only grow naturally in one specific region on Earth: the cold, clean waters of the Pacific Northwest, stretching from Washington State in the US to British Columbia, Canada. Especially Puget Sound, often called the geoduck capital of the world. But here's the surprising part. It takes a geoduck 5 to 7 years just to reach harvest size. And if left alone in nature, it can live up to 140 years, with the oldest one ever recorded reaching 168. A creature that grows slowly, lives slowly. And that's what makes it incredibly rare. But being naturally rare is just one piece of the puzzle. Both the US and Canadian governments strictly control how many geoducks can be harvested each year. There are tight quotas in place to protect the long-term population, which means even if you have the money, you can't always buy more geoduck if the quota is already met. Low supply, high demand, years of waiting, and a tiny natural habitat. All of that adds up to one thing. Geoduck is now one of the most expensive and rare seafoods on the planet.
Freshness runs on a deadline. When it comes to geoduck, freshness isn't just a preference, it's a requirement. That signature crunchy texture, that crisp, ocean-clean bite chefs rave about, it only happens when the clam is still alive. So right after being pulled from the cold waters of Puget Sound, geoducks are packed immediately, in insulated boxes, wrapped in damp towels, chilled with ice packs, and flown across the globe. From Washington State to upscale restaurants in Beijing, Shanghai, or Hong Kong, all within 36 hours. But here's the catch. Fresh things are fragile. A small change in temperature, a slight delay in delivery, a tiny mistake in cabin pressure, and the geoduck dies. And if it dies, it's no longer sashimi grade. Its value drops instantly. There's always a risk of loss in shipping, and air freight isn't cheap. Every step, from packaging, cold storage, handling, and global air transport, adds to the final cost. So the next time you take a bite of that $100 geoduck sashimi at a fine dining table in Asia, know that it's not just a piece of seafood. It's the result of a high-speed, high-stakes race to keep nature alive and perfect. But here's the question. Is it worth the price? Let us know in the comments.
The art of eating a geoduck. You're tasting a creature that can live over 140 years. Just one thin slice of geoduck sashimi, but it took years to grow, hours to harvest, and a flight across the ocean to land on your plate. So what's it like? The flavor is clean and subtly sweet, like the ocean after rain. There's natural umami, a gentle, salty touch, and zero fishiness. Only the freshest geoducks deliver that. But the real star is the texture. The siphon, that long neck, is crunchy and firm, never rubbery. Chefs say it's not just flavor, it's a full sensory experience. How it's served? Sashimi, thinly sliced and dipped in soy sauce and wasabi. Hot pot, quick dip in broth to keep the crunch. Stir fry with crisp veggies for texture. Porridge, the softer body meat, sweet, nourishing, comforting. And here's the twist. In some Asian cultures, geoduck is believed to boost male vitality because of its shape. There's no science behind it, but it is rich in protein, zinc, and minerals. So whether you eat it for health or status, it's luxury on every level.
At one point during the US-China trade war,
China imposed heavy import tariffs on American geoducks, a product that used to send 90% of its harvest straight to Asia. The impact? Orders were canceled overnight, prices collapsed, and geoduck farmers and divers across North America faced massive financial losses. What was once known as live gold in fine dining circles suddenly had to be sold at a fraction of its former value, just to local markets. It was a harsh wake-up call. Even the luxury seafood market can be fragile. Global supply chains that keep your sashimi fresh can break in an instant.
From a weird-looking clam ignored on American beaches to a luxury symbol at Asia's most exclusive banquets, the geoduck has come a long way. It's not just seafood, it's a story of time, risk, and a global cold chain system working non-stop just to keep it fresh and crunchy. So here's the question. If you had the chance, would you pay $100 just to try one slice of geoduck sashimi, crispy, sweet, and ocean fresh? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Why So Expensive, so you don't miss the wild stories behind the world's most surprising luxury items.